Welcome back, viewers. You're watching WION World is One. This is World DNA, the show that gets you ahead of the rest. I'm Shivan Chandna.
And I'm Hem Kaur Saroya, and on the show today, US President Donald Trump has paused his steep new tariffs this hours after they took effect. Trump has announced a 90-day pause on most of the new tariffs for every country except for China. Of course, we'll be discussing the impact of this on the show today.
While China gets that special treatment, US President Donald Trump has said the military action against Iran is absolutely possible if talks failed to produce a deal on its nuclear program. He's also made it clear that Israel would be the leader of strikes on Iran if nuclear talks fail. We'll bring you the latest on that. Let's start with the headlines.
Global markets rebound after US President Donald Trump pauses his tariff hike on most countries except China, unveiling a 90-day pause.
But with Iran, if it requires military, we're going to have military.
US President Donald Trump says he is ready for a military option on Iran if planned nuclear talks between the two countries do not go well.
Ukraine's Vladimir Zelensky accuses Beijing of turning a blind eye to the recruitment of Chinese nationals to fight for Russia. Says he is prepared to exchange captured Chinese soldiers with Ukrainian servicemen.
(2611) Mumbai attack accused Rana likely to land in India today. Rana was extradited from the US and was put on a special flight to India on Wednesday.
Amazon postpones launch of a rocket carrying its low Earth orbit internet satellites due to poor weather.
It is confirmed that we will not continue on project today. We will work with our partners.
Volkswagen's operating profit plunged in the latest quarterly results. The car maker faces multiple headwinds, including US tariff uncertainty and diesel-related provisions.
PSG fight back to strike a late blow to Aston Villa's hopes in the Champions League. The French champions lead the quarter-final tie 3-1.
Global markets rocketed higher as US President Donald Trump paused his steep new tariffs hours after they took effect.
Now, Trump has announced a 90-day pause on most of the tariffs for every country except for China. This led to a euphoric Wednesday for Wall Street as US stocks soared to one of their best days in history. The Dow Jones surged 7.9%, while the S&P 500 index rallied 9.5%. The tech-focused Nasdaq Composite Index jumped 12.2%.
Stocks in Asia also rebounded strongly. In Japan, the Nikkei was up 7.2%, while in Seoul, the Kospi was up over 5%. Trump made the surprise announcement on Truth Social that he has authorized a 90-day pause on the higher tariffs, while the baseline 10% tariff would remain.
Trump later told reporters that he had been considering a pause for several days. On Monday, the White House had announced a report that administration was considering such a move, calling it fake news.
But this was something certainly we've been talking about for a period of time, and we decided to pull the trigger. And we did it today, and we're happy about it. I didn't know it would have that kind of an impact, but it's, I think they have the biggest increase in the history of the stock market. That's pretty good.
Trump, however, singled out the world's second biggest economy, that is China, saying that its tariff rate would be raised to 125%. The US president claimed that the reason for punishing tariffs on Beijing was based on the lack of respect.
China wants to make a deal. They just don't know how.
U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent also asserted that the pullback had been the plan all along to bring countries to the bargaining table. He claimed the stock markets did not factor into the president's decision.
We saw the successful negotiating strategy that President Trump implemented a week ago today. It has brought more than 75 countries forward to negotiate. It took great courage for him to stay the course until this moment. And what we have ended up with here, as I told everyone a week ago, they're in this very spot, do not retaliate and you will be rewarded. So every country in the world who wants to come and negotiate, we are willing to hear you. We're going to go down to a 10% baseline tariff for them, and China will be raised to 125 due to their insistence on escalation.
Now, Trump's turnabout, which came less than 24 hours after steep new tariffs kicked in on most trading partners, followed the most intense episode of financial market volatility since the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic. The upheaval erased trillions of dollars from stock markets and led to an unsettling surge in the U.S. government bond yields. And for more on this, the correspondent Susan Tehrani has sent us this report from New York. Listen to this.
President Trump has escalated his trade war with China, imposing a 125% tariff on Chinese goods following China's retaliatory hike of 84%. And while President Trump did implement a 90-day pause on reciprocal tariffs for many countries, China was notably excluded. After this news broke out, billionaire investor Bill Ackman praised the president, calling all of this, quote, brilliantly executed and textbook art of the deal, referring to President Trump's book. Ackman, who had urged President Trump to allow space for these tariffs and negotiations, warned that without a pause, many small businesses could ultimately face bankruptcy. Now, this tariff pause and the announcement also helped ease global market fears. The Dow surged 2,000 points after the announcement. However, it's safe to say that recession fears and concerns loom as the U.S.-China trade standoff intensifies. And what it does is basically exposes economic vulnerabilities. President Trump says that he's confident China will come to the negotiating table. We'll have to wait and see. Susan Tehrani reporting from New York for WION World is One.
All right, also to discuss this further, we're now being joined by Gaurav Sansawal from Washington, D.C. He is a fellow for the India Chair at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. In his role, he supports chairs commercial and economic engagement with stakeholders in the United States and India. Thank you so much for joining us on World DNA.
Thanks for inviting me.
So let's get right into it. What I want to begin by asking you is, do you reckon that all of this has been premeditated? Of course, we had heard reports earlier as well that there was likely going to be a pause. Those reports were then rubbished. Now there is, in fact, a 90-day pause. What do you think is happening here?
I think all of this makes the policy goal of tariffs fairly clear. And the policy goal here is to bring countries to the negotiating table. And if anything, in the Indian context at least, India began negotiating a bilateral free trade agreement right after Prime Minister Modi's trip to Washington in the early few days of the Trump presidency. And so, in some ways, one could say that India was better prepared to handle this than many of the other countries that are now beginning to see what this is all about, which is that the US is trying to correct the imbalances in the overall trade policy, in the trading relationships that US has with other countries. And the way US wants to do it is by gaining leverage over countries through the imposition of tariffs, and then using that as a device to bring countries to the table, to the negotiating table, where there can be some amount of reciprocity. So I think it's fairly safe to say that the policy goal today has become more clear than it ever was, and negotiation is what all of this is aimed at.
Gaurav, as far as China is concerned, clearly they're getting the special treatment from the US. Tariff rates, we heard of 34%, 104%, 125%. Is this a power struggle for Trump at this point, wanting to declare US as the de facto economic leader in the world? Because China is the closest that comes to the US. What's really happening? Why is China getting this kind of treatment?
I think this goes to the heart of the Trump election campaign, and even before that, the trade policy of the last few decades, where there has been this growing realization in the political economy that President Trump represents, which is that a large number of jobs from the US have gone to countries like China in the last few decades. And so that has led to loss of jobs, loss of that relative sense of economic prosperity in certain parts of the U.S. And especially the parts of U.S. which many people don't often get to see, parts beyond the East and the West Coast. And so China's uniquely positioned in that. It enjoys the kind of a relationship where over the last few decades, it's managed to get a larger share of the jobs in the trade pie, if we may say so. And so therefore today the attempt is to single that out. It's not new. We've seen over the last 10, 15 years a consistent effort by subsequent administrations in the US to get tough on correcting the kind of the improper trade unfair practices that certain countries use in the world. And so I see it as part of a continued trend. It's not a departure from the overall sense of geo-economic competition between China and the US. It's part of the same trend. But of course, it's happening and playing itself out in a fairly dramatic fashion right now.
I hear you.
And I think in the next few days, it'll only get more dramatic.
All right. Also, now that there is this 90-day reprieve, what do you think India will be doing or should be doing in this time?
I think India would want to close in that preferential trade agreement deal as fast as it humanly can. There is a deadline of fall, which was given in the joint statement between the two leaders. But I will not be surprised if that happens sooner rather than later, because that is a way to get to the table and lock in some of the benefits. And on the flip side, limit the sort of damage which will happen in certain other sectors. And so I think India will be focused on doing that. Already, we've seen Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal make trips to Washington, and also a delegation from the US visiting New Delhi to negotiate the terms of that agreement. And even in the last few days, when there was imposition of tariffs, we saw that, yes, sectors like gems and jewelry, auto components were negatively impacted from an Indian perspective. But then there were also small opportunities for India in areas like textiles, in areas like energy. And so every crisis is also an opportunity. And for India, the preferential trade agreement is a way to lock in the opportunities and to make the crisis portion more predictable and more balanced. And I think they're fairly advanced in their
Understood.
efforts towards achieving that.
I hear your point. That was Gaurav Sansanwal joining us from Washington, D.C. When it comes to Trump, there's never a dearth of headlines and U-turns. There'll be more to discuss. Thanks so much for joining us on the show, Gaurav.
Thanks so much.
All right, days after Donald Trump's federal funding cut threats, Harvard University is now planning to borrow $750 million from Wall Street as part of contingency.
Now, last week, the government sent a letter to the university listing conditions that the university must meet to receive federal money. This includes a ban on protesters wearing masks to hide their identities. Trump administration has announced a review of $9 billion in federal grants and contracts to the university. And this is done as a measure to crack down on alleged anti-Semitism on campuses. Government calls these protesters terror sympathizers.
Several students have been arrested over the participation in protests and rallies in support of Palestine. Last month, a doctoral student at Tufts University was detained by federal agents as well. Palestinian activists at Columbia University, Mahmoud Khalil, was also arrested.
Since assuming office in January, the US president has cut billions of dollars in federal research funding to universities, forcing them to halt research programs and lay off many of their staff. Now, the move has been condemned by academic leaders who warn of negative consequences for education funding, equity and oversight. And over to West Asia, US President Donald Trump has said military action against Iran is absolutely possible if talks failed to produce a deal on its nuclear program.
Now, he said that there is not much time to reach an agreement. Trump did not rule out military option on Iran, just days ahead of likely talks between the two countries in Oman.
The US President confirmed it while talking to reporters at the Oval Office, that he also said that Israel will be the leader of a military option.
But with Iran, if it requires military, we're going to have military. Israel will obviously be very much involved in that. He'll be the leader of that. But nobody leads us. We do what we want to do.
On Saturday, U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff will lead indirect talks with Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, with Oman's Foreign Minister mediating these discussions.
Furthermore, the US Senate voted 53 to 46 to confirm former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee to be the Trump administration's ambassador to Israel. It came just 2 days after Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu visited the White House.
He's going to be fantastic. He's going to bring home the bacon. Even though bacon isn't too big, it is yet.
That's just the third letter.
I had to clear that up.
Now, the confirmation of Mike Huckabee, a staunch ideological ally of Israel, was hailed by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and other senior officials. Netanyahu, in a post on X, called it a great day for the Israeli-American alliance.
Days before the US is due to hold nuclear talks with Iran, the Israeli Prime Minister on Wednesday met with CIA Chief John Ratcliffe in Jerusalem. Mossad Chief David Barnea was also present in that meeting. Amidst all this, Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz visited the Morag corridor, bisecting Gaza between the southern cities of Rafah and Khan Yunis. Katz emphasized that Israel would keep increasing pressure on Gaza until the hostages are freed and Hamas is defeated.
The population of Gaza is evacuating from the fighting zones, and large areas are being seized and added to Israel's security zones, leaving Gaza smaller and more isolated.
Now, Katz also said that Israeli troops are seizing large areas in Gaza and making the Palestinian territories smaller and more isolated, as an airstrike on a residential block killed at least 23 people.
The population of Gaza is evacuating from the fighting zones, and large areas are being seized and added to Israel's security zones, leaving Gaza smaller and more isolated.
Now, the European Union's foreign policy chief has called China a key enabler of Russia's war in Ukraine.
Kaja Kallas has said that without Chinese support, Russia wouldn't be able to wage the war. Speaking in Brussels at a news conference with Ukrainian Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal, she added that if China would want to really stop the support, then it would have an impact.
What is clear is that China is the key enabler of Russia's war. Without Chinese support, Russia wouldn't be able to wage the war in the amount that they are waging this. So we see that 80% of the dual-use goods are actually entering Russia via China.
Now, the comments come after Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky announced that the Ukrainian military had captured 2 Chinese men fighting alongside the Russian army on Ukrainian soil and had information that significantly more are with Russian forces.
Zelensky told reporters in Kiev that Ukrainian intelligence had information about 155 Chinese citizens fighting for the Russian military against Ukraine. And this is the first time that Ukraine has made such a claim about Chinese fighters in the war.
Beijing has denied the claim, calling it totally unfounded. Zelensky has now said that the Chinese nationals captured in eastern Ukraine are in communication with the investigators.
The Security Service of Ukraine is carrying out the initial procedural actions with captured Chinese citizens. They are in Kyiv. They are in communication with the investigators. They are providing information about how they ended up at the front, how they became participants in this international crime, this Russian war against Ukraine.
Злочину цієї російської війни проти України.
Zelensky also said that Russia is recruiting Chinese citizens via social media and that these Chinese officials are aware of that. He added that Ukraine is trying to assess whether the recruits were receiving instructions from Beijing.
China has provided strong diplomatic support for Russia since it launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine back in 2022. Western officials say that it has also sold Russia machinery and microelectronics that it can use to make weapons. But China is not believed to have knowingly provided Russia with troops, weapons or military expertise. Meanwhile, Zelensky has confirmed for the first time that Ukrainian troops have been active in Russia's Belgorod region as they seek to protect Ukrainian towns near the border.
Ukrainian troops also remain in parts of the neighboring Russian region of Kursk. The Russian forces have recaptured much of its lost territory. Zelensky has said that active operations in the border areas are absolutely justified and that their main objective is to protect the Sumy and the Kharkiv region.
Protests against Hungary's law banning pride parades continue in Budapest.
Now, Hungary's parliament passed the law banning pride parades last month. Since then, rights groups are organizing protests against the ruling nationalist government.
Now, in the latest, protesters blocked a bridge in central Budapest demanding withdrawal of the anti-LGBTQ law. Thousands of people rallied in central Budapest to protest against the legislation.
The controversial legislation was fast-tracked through Parliament in March. This move comes amid growing accusations that Viktor Orban's government is undermining democracy ahead of the national elections next year.
The legislation cites child protection law to impose a ban on the pride marches.
And there's a stink rising over the United Kingdom's second largest city.
Garbage has piled up on roads and outside homes in Birmingham with trash collectors on a strike. that's now into its 5th week. No bin collections, no waste disposal, and the stench only grows as waste spills out of black bags left uncollected for weeks. A strong and unpleasant smell has taken over several neighborhoods in Birmingham. There are growing fears over public health as well, with rats drawn to heaps of bin bags lining roads in residential areas.
It's really hard for us. Like my daughter said, she can't go at the back because basically there's lots of trash at the back, so they can't go to play around. They've got trampoline at the back, but every time my son goes at the back, he vomits about the smell. So it's really hard for my kids to go play around, you know. So I don't know, we'll have to do something about it to get back take the bins away.
Nearly 400 members of the union representing garbage truck workers Unite are on strike. An indefinite stop work agitation began in early March. Only a fraction of the usual workforce and some agency crews, about half the scheduled number, are currently working.
Do you know what? All we want to do is come to work. We feel for the people who are having the rubbish left. We're all Birmingham residents ourselves, so our rubbish is not being removed as well. So we 100% feel we don't want to be out here. We literally want to go back to work, but we want a fair day's pay for a fair day's work.
The Labour Party-run Birmingham City Council has declared the situation a major incident. Some additional clean-up crews and garbage trucks have been brought in from outside. It's reached a stage of desperation and appeals to the workers.
And they have to look at, who is suffering most. The residents of Birmingham, 1.25 million people, they are suffering. And it's creating a very bad image throughout the world. You can see from social media and international media, we don't want that sort of... Birmingham City Council. Birmingham City is the second biggest city in the whole UK. And it's creating a very bad image for the city.
Now, the garbage dump on the city's outskirts is the only relief. Residents have been turning up in cars packed with bags of waste, eager to get rid of them. Special application clearances are needed to reach the place, and even there the rush is overwhelming. A breath of fresh air gets more and more difficult to come by. And with that, it's time now for a short break.
Don't go anywhere. This is World D, and of course, we will be back after the break. When we come back, 2611 Mumbai attacks accused Tariffs Rana is expected to reach India today after all legal formalities for his extradition were completed. A special aircraft is expected to land at the Indira Gandhi International Airport in New Delhi. We'll bring you the full report.
Earth's magnetic field is weakening, and NASA scientists say this mysterious dent in the Earth's magnetic field is growing further. We'll get you all the latest on this on the other side.
India's Global Voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is one.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
Vielleicht nur als Imposant.
To bring the benefits of the Subhash Chandra Show to your educational institution, teachers and students, send an invitation to Juhi Jha at juhi@such.org.in.
Alright viewers, welcome back. You're watching World DNA with Haim. I'm Shivan. Lots more to discuss on this side of the show. Let's start with the headlines.
2611 Mumbai attack accused Tariffs Rana expected to land in India later in the day. Rana was extradited from the United States and was put on a special flight to India on Wednesday.
US President Donald Trump says he is ready for a military option on Iran if planned nuclear talks between the two countries do not go well.
Global markets rebound after US President Donald Trump pauses his tariff hike on most countries except China, unveiling a 90-day pause.
China files a fresh complaint with the WTO, slamming US tariffs as reckless amid surging global trade tensions. Trump's aggressive duties, 125% on Chinese imports, ignite a direct trade war between the two largest economies in the world.
Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky accuses Beijing of turning a blind eye to the recruitment of Chinese nationals to fight for Russia. Says he is prepared to exchange captured Chinese soldiers with Ukrainian servicemen.
Amazon postpones the launch of a rocket carrying its low Earth orbit internet satellites due to poor weather.
PSG fight back to strike a late blow to Aston Villa's hopes in the Champions League. The French champions lead the quarter-final tie 3-1.
(2611) Mumbai attack accused. Tariffs Rana is expected to reach India today after being extradited from the US.
Now, sources have told WION that Indian officials have taken custody of Rana and are to land in New Delhi later in the day. As per the sources, an NIA team was sent to the United States to bring Rana to India after all legal formalities for his extradition were completed.
The aircraft is expected to make a brief refueling stop in Europe before reaching the Indira Gandhi International Airport in New Delhi. According to sources, he will likely be kept at a high-security ward in Tihar jail. The development comes after the US Supreme Court denied Rana's plea seeking an emergency stay on his extradition. The court's order had cleared the way for his handover to India. Earlier, the US State Department spokesperson confirmed the sequence of events leading up to the extradition.
US Secretary of State had signed the surrender warrant on the 11th of February, authorizing the extradition of Tariffs Rana to India. Rana's legal counsel had filed an emergency stay motion. However, the top court dismissed that petition on the 7th of April.
In February, US President Donald Trump had announced the approval of Rana's extradition during Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Washington, D.C.
Today, I'm pleased to announce that my administration has approved the extradition of one of the plotters and one of the very evil people of the world, and having to do with the horrific 2008 Mumbai terrorist attack, to face justice in India. So he's going to be going back to India to face justice.
Now, Tahir is known to be associated with Pakistani-American terrorist David Coleman Headley, one of the key conspirators of the 26/11 attacks. David Headley had allegedly conducted a recce of Mumbai before the attacks by posing as an employee of Rana's immigration consultancy.
On November 26, 2008, a group of Lashkar-e-Toiba terrorists carried out a coordinated attack on several targets in Mumbai, including a railway station, 2 luxury hotels and a Jewish center. As many as 166 people were killed in the nearly 60-hour assault.
Now, for more on this, our Assistant Editor for Foreign Affairs, Siddhant Sibal, has sent us this report. Listen to this.
It's a big day for India, a big day of diplomatic victory for India. 26/11 mastermind Tahir Rana is being brought to India by Indian authorities. He was handed over by US authorities to the Indian authorities yesterday, and we know that it has been a long legal battle for India. In fact, just last week, the US Supreme Court turned down the plea of Tahir Rana that he should not be extradited to India. And essentially, we know that at political level as well, there have been conversations on this issue. In fact, when the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi was in Washington at the White House, this is a topic that came up for discussion. And the US President Donald Trump had publicly stated that the evil man will be handed over to the Indian side. But not only it's a day of diplomatic victory, it's a day of closure for the family members of the 26/11 attack victims. Essentially, that there is some kind of closure that is coming forward to, and of course, whatever he will say in India in terms of his interrogation that is expected, that will reveal more into the Pakistani hand when it comes to this terror attack, the worst on Indian soil. Siddhant Sibal for WION.
Now, London's High Court has officially dismissed Indian businessman Vijay Mallya's latest attempt to overturn a bankruptcy order tied to a staggering debt exceeding $1.2 billion.
The verdict comes as yet another blow to the former liquor baron, who has been locked in legal battles for over a decade. Mallya, who fled to Britain amid mounting financial troubles in India, had sought to reverse the bankruptcy order first issued against him in 2021. Now, that order stemmed from a 2017 ruling in India where a consortium of Indian banks led by the State Bank of India, SBI, secured a judgment against Mallya.
Mallya had personally guaranteed loans to his now defunct Kingfisher Airlines, which collapsed in 2012 under massive losses. His legal teams argued that during a February hearing that lenders had already recovered enough assets to settle the debt. They claimed the bankruptcy order was unjustified and unnecessary.
In a written decision, Judge Anthony Mann made it clear that the bankruptcy order remains intact. Mann ruled that despite Mallya's claims, the debt has not been fully resolved and the banks have the right to pursue recovery. Mallya or his lawyers are yet to comment on the latest development.
Now, this bankruptcy case is only one part of Mallya's growing list of legal battles back in India. He is wanted on fraud and money laundering charges in connection with the collapse of Kingfisher Airlines. The Indian government has been pushing hard for his extradition. Though a UK court rejected Mallya's appeal against extradition in 2020, British authorities are yet to enforce this order.
Now, according to Judge Mann, Mallya continues to resist extradition through other pending legal avenues. All right, let's move further from here. Now, the deportation of hundreds of thousands of Afghan refugees from Pakistan is the latest flashpoint between the Shehbaz Sharif government and Kabul's Taliban.
government. Now, the Taliban government has called the deportations an unacceptable act by the Pakistan government while accusing it of mistreating Afghanistan.
Just days after the Pakistan government began the second round of deportations of around 800,000 Afghan refugees, the Taliban government accused Pakistan of violently expelling Afghans. However, Pakistan has made it clear that as part of its crackdown, thousands of Afghans with residence permits will be asked to leave by early April. Reports suggest that since the start of the second phase of the crackdown, over 11,300 Afghan migrants have been deported between April 1st to April 9th.
There is absolutely no need for such operations. When police raid homes at 2 a.m., breaking down doors and forcibly removing children, it's done in plain sight. People are already leaving voluntarily. Why cause distress and harassment? This method, used since 2025, is the wrong approach.
For a man with a family, nothing is worse than seeing the police take his women from his home. Can anything be more humiliating than this? It would be better if they just killed us instead.
Meanwhile, amid reports of intimidation and arrests of Afghan refugees, Pakistani nationals are raising concerns about the well-being of Afghans in their country.
They are not doing the right thing because the Afghans have been living here for a long time and their home is here now. Their children are studying here, so this is their country too. They should be given the same rights as us.
Now, as Pakistan expedites the repatriation of Afghan refugees, there is a growing chorus of international organizations to adopt a humane approach in handling the crisis.
My crime is that I'm Afghan. That's my crime. These are the fingerprints. I have the permits. It's not like I didn't have the card. I had green cards too, and they tore them up.
Now, Pakistan-Taliban ties hit rock bottom after the Taliban returned to power in 2021. Pakistan has time and again called out the Taliban for its alleged failure to rein in the TTP that it has accused of orchestrating terror attacks against Pakistani security forces. Now, the global tariff war has entered a new phase.
Donald Trump has imposed tariffs of over 125% on Chinese imports, sharply escalating tensions between the world's two largest economies. Trump took to his social media handle to announce this latest reversal. He blamed China for the recent global market rout and is now engaged in a direct confrontation with a critical trade partner. This latest move by Trump could have direct implications for the world, already embroiled in war and geopolitical tensions. Let's first recap the trade ties between the two nations.
Last year, bilateral trade in goods totaled $585 billion. The US imported $440 billion worth of goods from China, while exporting $145 billion, resulting in a $295 billion trade deficit, a key grievance from Trump. Tariffs from both the Trump and Biden administration have already reduced China's share of US imports from 21% in 2016 to 13% in 2024.
The tariff battle targets critical goods. The US imports electronics, smartphones, batteries and toys from China. Smartphones alone account for 9% of US imports from China, many assembled there by US firms like Apple, which has seen a 20% drop in market value in recent weeks.
Meanwhile, China relies on the US for soybeans, pharmaceuticals and petroleum, with tariffs now as high as 84%. Prices for Chinese consumers are set to rise, and the situation is further complicated by tariff evasion routes. US officials say Chinese goods are being rerouted through Vietnam, Malaysia, Cambodia and Thailand. New reciprocal tariffs on those countries may further raise prices for US buyers, especially for solar panels, electronics and batteries.
Together, the US and China account for 43% of global GDP. An all-out trade war could weigh on global growth, global investment and market stability. China has already restricted exports of strategic metals like germanium and gallium, vital for defense and AI applications. And on the other hand, the US could intensify its technology blockade, targeting Chinese access to advanced microchips. Analysts say they've also warned of a global dumping risk. China is already running a $1 trillion goods surplus, with excess products like steel potentially flooding global markets at artificially low prices. The ripple effects of this economic confrontation are now being felt worldwide, and this is only the beginning. Well, Earth's magnetic field is weakening, and NASA scientists say that this mysterious dent in the Earth's magnetic field is only growing.
Our next story explains how this could be a cause for concern for all of us. Take a look.
In the vast expanse of space, an invisible force has protected our planet for millennia, generated by powerful dynamic forces at the center of our universe. The magnetosphere shields us from the dangerous solar wind. Earth's magnetic field is crucial for protecting the planet and life. But now, this protective bubble surrounding our planet is developing a weak spot, allowing dangerous particles to slip through. Scientists call it the South Atlantic anomaly. This is a region where the Earth's magnetic field is significantly weaker than elsewhere. It's like a pothole in space, an area where satellites and spacecraft become more vulnerable to the harsh radiation environment of space. As these machines orbit Earth, they pass through this weakened region, risking damage to their sensitive electronic systems. But why should we care about something happening so far above us? The answer lies in our increasing dependence on technology. From GPS navigation to weather forecasting and telecommunications, countless aspects of our daily lives rely on satellites that must navigate this treacherous zone. What's more alarming is this anomaly isn't static. It's expanding westward and may even be splitting in two. Scientists at NASA are keeping a watchful eye on these changes. This evolution suggests that the Earth's magnetic field is undergoing significant changes, possibly linked to the dynamic movements of molten iron within the planet's outer core. Understanding these changes is crucial, as they could have implications for navigation systems, animal migration patterns, and the overall stability of our planet.
Now, a humanoid robot recently took a journey to Lhasa's Potala Palace. The robot, equipped with cutting-edge AI, has not only become a major attraction for many, but is also an example of the perfect blend between modern technology and ancient culture. Take a look at these visuals.
Former world number one Novak Djokovic may not have had big expectations from the Monte Carlo Masters, but even he wouldn't have seen this one coming.
The world number 5 has crashed out in the second round. He beat his in straight sets by Chile's Alejandro Tabilo. The two-time Monte Carlo winner came in underprepared. His build-up was disrupted by an eye infection, playing his first match on clay since winning gold at the Paris Olympics.
Djokovic made a perfect start as he broke Tabilo's serve in the opening game, but things started going downhill